Hello everyone! I come to you today from a little bit different of a setting than normal because we are in the process of redoing my room. But today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about villains and plot lines. If you know me, you know that I love villains.
Vlog villain videos. Anyway.
You also know that I write a lot of villains. I have a tendency to put in so many villains and so many different things, and I really like chasing my protagonists around with one villain over here and another villain over here, and then having them just like fight over the protagonist, because I like having the protagonist be a person of interest for multiple groups. This becomes a problem when those plot lines and those desires conflict with each other, which is a very interesting dilemma to have, because you end up with, like, again, all of the fighting and infighting between different mob groups, more or less. It took me a while, as in 7 years, to learn how to do this well. And the main trick with doing it well is learning how to tie everything in the story back to one main villain. Granted, there's always exceptions to this rule, there's exceptions to every rule, that's the way of creating rules, right? But even if you have a book and a series, so like right now I'm writing a series, right? I have one major villain for the entire series. He pulls strings in every single book. I had to figure out how to show you that he's pulling strings in every single book. Had to figure out how to do that in a way that wasn't distracting from the main plot line of each book. In the same way that if you were looking at a TV show, right, every episode has an entire plot line within it. There's an antagonist for that episode, like, especially, like, think of Supernatural, right? There's the monster of the week that they have to hunt and figure out how to kill. But at the same time, there's the whole series arc where there is a big bad. In some moments of, like, some of those episodes, they are up against the big series big bad, right? But you also have those not quite filler episodes, because there's still important plot things happening, but they're interacting with smaller bad guys that they happen to come across. Think of writing a series in that way. So you have the big overarching big bad, but then each book has their own antagonist. And the thing with these books is that if you have two main antagonists, you have to be really careful in how you create the suspense for that, because otherwise, if you do it wrong, essentially what can happen is that your reader, your viewer, your reader, your audience, doesn't know who the worst person in the room is. And if they don't know who the worst person in the room is, they won't know who to root against or who to root for. I mean, ideally you hope they're rooting for the protagonist, right? But if they don't know who to root for and who to root against, that's when you run into problems in terms of figuring out, okay, was this, like, the suspense fell flat here, the reader got bored, they didn't care about this plotline at all because this other antagonist that I thought was a B antagonist was actually acting as the main A antagonist. And so you really have to be careful when you have multiple antagonists all vying for the same protagonist, and how you do that. And so the best way to do that is to make sure that their motives are really clear. Make sure that they know, like, make sure that your reader knows exactly what the antagonist wants from your protagonist, whether that's by having scenes from the antagonist's perspective, or from having the antagonist monologue to a different character, or whatever. If your protagonist can't know what they actually want from them, that's okay, find a way around it. But your reader needs to know. Because if your reader doesn't know, they won't feel that suspense. They won't feel that tension of, oh, I can't let this protagonist end up in this antagonist's grasp, right? And if the protagonist does end up in the antagonist's grasp, you're going to run into the problem of, does the reader feel like this is a bad thing? Or if you do end up killing off that antagonist, will the reader feel that hit? Will they feel the weight of what was just accomplished or done? The most important thing in suspense is to realize that an entire suspense novel is based around the concept of manipulating and controlling your audience's emotions. And if at any point you lose control of that, it won't be a very effective suspense novel. Your reader goes into this offering up their emotions on a plate to you, saying, hey, I want to care about these characters, and I want you to make me feel afraid for them. That is kind of what the reader offers in a suspense novel situation. And if you, as the writer, take those emotions and say, okay, what if I do this? And then the reader is like, nah, it didn't do it for me. That's when the reader walks away disappointed. That's when the suspense falls flat. That's when readers get bored. You don't want that. And oftentimes with two antagonists, you can easily get a bored reader, which is a bad thing. So you just got to be careful as you deal with that, and as you put things together, and as you figure out, okay, here's the main plot, here's the B plot. Is the antagonist of the main plot the driving force between every single thing that happens in this book? Or is it not? And if it's not, how do I fix it? Because if everything isn't connected back to that main antagonist, you have a problem. And if you set up the B antagonist as the main antagonist for your reader, you're going to have a problem. Because if you, as the writer, write the A antagonist, thinking that you're writing them as the A antagonist, and then your reader is like, wait, I thought this guy was the big bad evil guy, and now they're not. Or wow, why was it so easy to why didn't they do that earlier, right? If all they had to do was shoot him, why didn't they shoot him earlier? These are not the questions you want your reader to ask. You want your reader to instead put down the book thinking, I'm not okay. And that was great. That was the best thing I've ever read. The rest of the world needs to feel this pain too. And then, go tell the rest of the world about this book, right? All that to say, I easily fall into this trap. I've fallen into this trap for the past 7 years because I'm like, action, more action, make it more intense. And the fact of the matter is that more action does not often equal higher suspense or more intensity. The more that is going on, the more careful you have to be in how you're manipulating your reader's emotions. If your inclination is to add more action in order to get around the problem of needing more suspense, find a different way to add the suspense. Tie everything back to that one antagonist, right? And if you absolutely must have the two antagonists, find beta readers who will be able to help you know, for sure, if what you did was or was not effective. Until next time, I hope this helps, and I will see you then. Bye. If you like these videos, like and subscribe, and share them with a friend who writes suspense novels or is writing novels in general. Learning how to use suspense is a super helpful tool in any writer's toolbox. I also personally, I have a Patreon page, and I would like to give a great shout out to my patron. He helps me keep doing things like this every month, and I would love to have more of you join him in that effort. So, thanks Nathaniel, and if you're interested in figuring out more about writing suspense novels, following me, getting short stories, getting newsletters about writing and publishing, and things that I'm learning that only my patrons get to see, go check it out. There's a link down below, but here's the URL, and I will see you next time. Until then, bye!